Go dig all three of your brothers up with your scary ass. You up. Stop running from me. I ain't in no competition with you. Stop writing me. You up.
I don't have a problem with him. We just don't fuck with each other.
NBA YoungBoy and Fredo Bang weren't always enemies. In fact, for a time, they were both friends and collaborators. So what happened to change that? Why do they still have beef up to this very day? The answer, like it always is in these types of situations, is pretty complex. That being said, we're about to break it down for you from the very beginning. The reason they still haven't buried the hatchet might be just more surprising than you expect. So let's get into it. NBA YoungBoy and Fredo Bang both came up in the same area, around the same time. That's Baton Rouge, the capital of Louisiana. The weather is hot and humid, and so is the tension between rival gangs and hungry rappers alike. Fredo was born in '96, making him a few years older than YoungBoy, who was born in '99. Fredo grew up around rappers and gangsters, the most popular of which were Krazy, Trey, and G-Money. They'll be important in our story later on. YoungBoy, on the other hand, would grow up in the care of his grandma. He bought a mic from Walmart when he was just 14 and quickly began honing his flow and lyrics. Despite the fact that he wasn't really surrounded by rappers early on, he would practice day in and day out. Maybe his isolation from other rappers has always been more or less a constant in his life. That's aside from the homie he would move in with after dropping out of high school in the 9th grade. YoungBoy and NBA 33 would end up renting the same spot and funding studio time by committing petty crimes. Eventually, NBA YoungBoy and 33 got linked up with a rap group called TBG, which stands for Top Boy Gorilla. That's where he ended up meeting Fredo Bang, G-Money, and Krazy Trey. For a long time since NBA YoungBoy was friends with G-Money's brother, G-Money took YoungBoy under his wing. G-Money was basically his mentor, and they had a really close friendship. A lot of that would change when G-Money put out his TBG posse cut iPhone 6, and it blew up. They were riding off that wave for a while, and NBA YoungBoy decided he was going to capitalize on the newfound hype that TBG was experiencing thanks to that track. He put out his first big TBG mixtape, known as Life Before Fame, but it more or less failed to gain traction, meaning that G-Money stayed in the spotlight while YoungBoy started to fade into the background. Now, when I say people were really about iPhone 6, I mean it. One fan said this video shows a lot who really ran the shit before YB blew up. TBG had everything on lock. Another fan pointed out just how tragic it is that the whole squad fell apart, saying, "That's how it always be. You never think your friends will be your enemy till something happens, then once they do, it's all much more bitter, unfortunately. They couldn't squash it, RIP G-Money." Around this time, Fredo Bang got locked up for a little while after making an attempt on somebody's life. In 2016, Fredo Bang was hanging out with two homies. They left and went to one of the dude's apartments where the argument broke out into a whole fight. It ended when the homie brought out a weapon and Fredo dipped back to his car to grab his own piece. There was a standoff, and Fredo and the friend he wasn't beefing with skirted out of the scene. They ended up hitting another car, where the cops caught up with them and booked Fredo on 2 charges. He got on pretty well with TBG for a little while, before deciding that he and the crew weren't quite clicking the way he wanted. The way YoungBoy saw it, he didn't want to work making money for a bunch of other dudes, especially if those dudes weren't letting him shine the way he thought he deserved to. After a few arguments, 33 and YoungBoy split off from the group after a conversation they had with each other. They decided at that moment that they were never going to be broke again, which is where the NBA moniker came from. They were going to strike out solo and make their careers on their own, without crews like Top Boy Gorilla keeping them on the back burner. At first, it seemed like there were no hard feelings on either side over the departure of NBA YoungBoy and 33 from TBG, but that wouldn't last very long. Historically, YoungBoy's been known for repping 38th Street on the north side of Baton Rouge. TBG is from the south side though. YoungBoy was cool with TBG, but the other half of the south side was run by BBG, also known by Bottom Boy Gorillas. TBG and BBG had beef. Then became a big problem when YoungBoy made up with his cousin Boozilla, because Boozilla repped BBG. Suddenly, the past friends and collaborators were at odds with each other, and YoungBoy was caught in the middle. Obviously, TBG didn't like that YoungBoy left and struck out on his own, but the fact that he was now linked with BBG only made tensions worse. By the time Fredo Bang got out of jail, he'd find that his crew was now YoungBoy's sworn enemies. With this sudden change, YoungBoy had seen some success. Not only that, but now he was using his recent fame to send shots at the TBG crew he used to run with. That was only helped by the fact that apparently G-Money had a fling with YoungBoy's sister and posted about it all over Instagram, which YoungBoy used to fuel his anger on some savage diss tracks directed at his former mentor. Starting in 2016, the beef between TBG and BBG/NBA reached a boiling point. A number of YoungBoy's associates ended up implicated on the deaths of multiple TBG members and affiliates, and it was all sparked when Keandre Ricks, YoungBoy's cousin, was taken out. Boozilla was gone and somebody had to pay. From there, the floodgates were open, and it was time for revenge. YoungBoy and a friend named Terlongdick Norman started rolling around with 2 other people. They were looking for whoever got rid of Ricks. While they didn't end up harming anybody, they did attempt to pull a drive-by, which resulted in YoungBoy catching a charge. G-Money also pulled up on Say Cheese TV to talk about the whole thing, admitting that he did in fact sleep with YoungBoy's sister. According to G-Money, that whole thing was old news, and at first, YoungBoy didn't really have a problem with the hookup. He said that YoungBoy's fame got to him, and that's what really triggered the beef. It turns out that somebody didn't really like that comment though, because this interview happened just a month before G-Money passed away.
Not really. He mad about his sister too though.
About his sister?
Yeah, I had fucked her a long time ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he mad about that. He wasn't really tripping on it back then though, you know what I'm saying? He be calling me big brother and shit, you hear me? I guess he just let that fame and shit get to his head. Now he feel like he just this new nigga, whoever he supposed to be, whoever he called himself.
For the rest of the month after the interview, YoungBoy and G-Money were throwing diss tracks back and forth. That is until September when G-Money lost his life. After G-Money was found unresponsive in a parking lot, the police had no clue where to look for a possible suspect. He passed away at the scene, and although they found him at 1:30 a.m., they also had no idea when the crime had taken place. A little bit later, though, they finally had a lead. That lead led them to the man by the name DeAndre Fields, who was also the getaway driver in the drive-by that YoungBoy and Pap had tried to pull off in retaliation for the loss of Keandre Ricks. He was booked, charged, and then put away for the crime. With the loss of G-Money, you already know that there was no way TBG was going to sit around and not slide. This, of course, resulted in the loss of YoungBoy's manager, known as NBA Dump. Dump, whose real name was Desmond Hardnett, was hanging out and talking to his family around 6 p.m. in May of 2018. A car pulled up out of nowhere when rounds began flying. They hit him a few times, and a woman he was with. She survived, but sadly, Desmond didn't. Pretty much after all that, Fredo Bang was released from prison. He linked up with another member of the TBG by the name of Boulevard Quick to form a diss track dream team. They went after YoungBoy non-stop, dissing as often as they could just to make sure YoungBoy knew what was up. You also gotta figure that for Fredo, this was personal. YoungBoy went from appearing in the same videos as him to attempting to cap his homies, and maybe even sending shooters to make sure it got done. It even got to the point where NBA YoungBoy's mom felt like hopping on a live to say,
"Fuck Fredo Bang and fuck Boulevard Slow."
That didn't fly though, because Boulevard hopped on his own live to tell her to get his name out her mouth.
And keep my partner name out of mouth.
3 weeks later, though, somebody got back at Boulevard. He was found dead outside his apartment building. Things were more or less quiet from here for a little while, until YoungBoy announced that he'd be dropping a project on September 11th. But this was the same day that Fredo Bang had scheduled his drop for. Because of that, Fredo Bang took to Instagram saying, "Guess me and my son dropping together." YoungBoy responded in some lives to call Fredo a hoe, and also posted a video with the caption, "I'ma catch you and bang yo scary ass." YoungBoy also argued that the two of them aren't even in the same league. He even had the audacity to tell Fredo to dig all 3 of his brothers up. Fredo hit back with his own responses, saying, "Man, somebody go help little brother out, bro. He angry, dog. Talking about dead partners and shit. He act like I'm on this talking about Fat Boy and the extra large coffin he got. It ain't my fault your bitches be in my DMs." Obviously, YoungBoy got arrested a bit ago, and he's been mostly focused on all of his beef with Lil Durk. Meanwhile, Fredo Bang been out and about doing his thing, but there's been a development in the case recently. Fredo appeared in an interview with DJ Academics, and according to him, there really is no beef. He doesn't have any beef with YoungBoy, even though some of their people have beef. He says it's more of the fact that all the people around him have beef, but never really had an issue with the dude.
I don't have a problem with him. We just don't fuck with each other. Like, the social media makes it like that.
Fredo messes with Durk too, but he claims that it's not like he picked his side. He hates the people who are clicked up in the industry when they're not clicked up in the streets. He even says he'd do a song with YoungBoy. That being said, not everybody's on the same page as Fredo about the whole feud. One of the glaring examples is that when Academics asked if Fredo and YoungBoy released disses at each other, he says no, despite the fact that the two dudes have released countless disses at each other. One fan said, "Fredo Bang be capping so hard when he asked about the YoungBoy beef." One fan also shared a video of Tupac and Biggie freestyling together way back in the day, captioning it, "This is wild to me now after Fredo said him and YoungBoy was going to end their beef and the government stopped it." He also says that TBG and BBG and NBA were all gonna sit around a table together and talk about getting together to do something for the community. Unfortunately, at least according to him, the government shut it down for whatever reason. He said it wasn't because the community didn't want to do it, it was from the higher ups, like the federal government. Academics asks why that was, and Fredo really doesn't know. Maybe it's more profitable for them to keep the streets divided. Either way, it's really sad to hear that the whole project didn't work out. But what do y'all think about this though? Do you think Fredo and YoungBoy need the government to step in and end the beef for him, or should they just do it themselves either way? Let us know what you think in the comments. As usual, don't forget to keep it RIZZLE, and make sure you check out this next video if you dug what you saw here.